Hey everybody, welcome to another Rackspace Live. How exciting is this? Well, folks, as you know, my name is Jeff DeVerter. I am the Chief Technology Evangelist for us here at Rackspace Technology. And welcome. Hey, middle of the day. If you're in the US anyway, it's the middle of the day. And we're live here with another great program. Folks, I'd love for you to be not just viewers of the program, but participants. And that starts with introducing yourself. Who are you? Where are you? And and anything else you want to tell me about your day. Love to know if it's a good one. Hey, and if you want to get a hold of us, easiest way to do that outside of this program and in the chat down below of whatever service you're watching us on, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can send us an email over at solve@rackspace.com and check in with us. Let us know what you think about these programs. You can recommend ideas for future programs, guests. Maybe you want to be on. I don't know. Maybe let me know if you're interested in that. We're always looking for exciting people to come in and share some great information. All right. So with that, let's press on. And I want to jump into a little story. We like to start these with a news story. And this one, of course, as they all tend to do, pertains relatively well to the topic at hand today. And that's what we're going to get into and discuss about software observability. What is your company doing for software observability? I wonder. Well, in this article written by Betsy Amy Voigt, observability trends evolve as the market must tackle cybersecurity with automation. Now, we all know that the market needs to tackle a whole lot more than just cybersecurity with automation. Automation is a key to everything that's happening right now in technology. Now, if we take and rewind the clock a little bit and get back into the 20 teens a little bit, what you find is that application program monitoring programmatic monitoring was really, very much done through traditional models. It was done through, server logs. It was done through database logs, and it was up to the IT team, and in some cases the developers, if things got sticky and nasty, to take all these different logs and try to make some sense out of them. Well, especially as COVID happened and so much got digitized in such a short amount of time, that there needed to be a better way. Part of that happens through automation and through AI and ML and trying to take these big piles of data and find the nuggets of information that you need. But the piles of data still existed in multiple different locations. And that's really where this concept of software observability or just observability came into practice. And with that, you start to see some software companies who came along to help with that. Now, one of those companies, and it's a company we've been talking about a lot here, one of their leaders was on last month when we were doing the Women in Tech Month. Angela, she was fantastic, from AppDynamics. Well, today we've got another guest from AppDynamics, and we've invited Troy Partain to come be a part of the conversation. Now, Troy's a sales engineering leader over at AppDynamics. Super excited to have him on the program. Got a really interesting background and degree and all of that, which we'll discuss once he gets up here. But our topic today is it's kind of a cheeky title up there. If you look at it, answers to questions you didn't even know that you had. And this comes from, and I was even watching a demo and an overview of how the tools are used. There's really some amazing data that can be found. So let's bring Troy up onto the stage here and have a little chat. There he is. Troy, welcome to Rackspace Live.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
So glad that you're here. Now, you're just up the road. I'm down in San Antonio. You're a short skip up 35 to Dallas.
Dallas, yes. Yeah. Been down a few years. Love it.
We of course made the joke when we were preparing for this that you had moved to Dallas in prep for what you're doing in your role to be able to travel and all the things, and you make the move to Dallas only to get locked down as part of COVID, and your whole vision of flying out of DFW every day just was sort of melted apart.
No. Should have bought a house on a lake in hindsight, for sure.
Should have bought a house on a lake. Well, Troy, let's start with, I gave a very, I don't even call it a definition, maybe just an overview explanation of software observability. So, why don't you take us through what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So, we've moved, and it's a progression from where we've been in the past, right? Being able to monitor systems, to a progression of being able to answer things that, like your title goes, right? We don't even know that we don't know. So
Yeah.
with this, right, observability is fundamentally taking all these data elements of a system, keeping them, answering questions on them today, but also being able to run AI, ML against these, or even internal analysis in the future to be
Yeah.
able to answer stuff that's important either now or in the past. So it's really analysis at a greater scale because systems have become so complex that things change so dramatically and fundamentally that we need to kind of fundamentally change the way that we're even thinking about monitoring or looking at them or observing them. So really, it's another element of a system. Just as systems are performant or available, they need to be observed as well.
So I love that, either answering questions that you have now or being prepared for that in the future. And we talk about systems becoming much more complex, and if you go back and read that article that I was talking about before, it even draws things back to the mainframe days, where you just had this one big old computer, and that one big old computer had its monolithic application, and it was pretty easy to know what was happening inside of there in one or two or three different locations, just to track it. But as you enter the client server model, well, it was a little harder, but you can still take care of it. Enter some geodiversity and distribution, and now the challenge has been made even harder. But now step forward into cloud native architectures, and you're sort of at wit's end trying to figure out what's actually happening. And what's interesting is observability isn't just from the point of, hey, here's the web front end, let's say it's a web app, and taking it stuff, but actually tracking it through all of the connection points from user, in a lot of cases, all the way through the interwebs to the destination of the computer and back.
Every user even can be unique, right? The path that a process or a function like checkout goes through from an application could be different for you versus me, just because of preferences or systems. So, just being able to say, hey, a function is slow isn't the case all the time anymore too, right? If something's down,
Right.
it's easy to fix, right? Someone at Facebook changed the DNS entry, everything's down, right? Something's broken. Those are the calls I like to get in the past because like I knew what to do. When you get
Right.
a call and say, hey, something's slow, it's so much more difficult. And that's when you need to understand the paths across the board.
Right.
And like you mentioned, in a serverless or microservices and cloud native architectures, it is complex and it is often changing. What is there today, right now, isn't what was there 5 minutes ago.
That's right. Well, and you say the worst call, or the harder ones are when it's slow, or worse than that, intermittent. Hey, every now and again, a user gets this thing. What do you do with that? Well, that's when you need some tooling that actually tracks it through. And so tell me about the platform. How does it do what it does?
Yeah. So ultimately, we leverage the modern frameworks and languages that are built in for the technologies and
Yeah.
pull out, metadata, trace data, logs, and allow all of this stuff to basically suck back into our platform. And then analysis runs against those to not only say, hey, we actually know what's going on. We know how long checkout took. We know how long it took to add something to the cart, et cetera. But we understand which ones are slow, and then we're capturing deep diagnostic data for those as well. So not only can we say, hey, when someone said there's a problem, that we know that's factually accurate, right? It's
Yeah.
true, but we can also say who was impacted, how many, what percentage, and so on, and then have the understanding of exactly where that problem occurred. But not only is that important, but what are the commonalities amongst the people that are having problems as well? Right. We said that things are complex, right? Maybe we're using different versions, maybe different data centers to run the same executions, right? Is it only people that are processing in a region in the east? Is it only people that are using certain functions, right? Though that's where the true power comes in. That's really where the analysis of all of this big data is important because, like you said, our systems are complex. The variables that go into these things are monumental. And when you can assess and do a lot of that kind of back end legwork for you, say, hey,
Mhm.
okay, you have a problem, go look at these two things. It removes a lot of the kind of work that used to be done manually, but also allows us to speed resolution to a lot of those issues themselves.
Well, and when we think about taking that data, and before, we just would think about how do I triangulate logs, which is a great first start for it. But now, when you can take and dip down into actual application calls, when you get into the database calls, and when you can track what was happening before and after from a time sequence perspective, then you can really get some intelligence that's going to help you not only diagnose, but lead towards root resolution. And in the end, with these hundreds of thousands, millions of lines of log-based data, it really does point out the fact that almost every problem in our lives these days is a data problem. And so, being able to find the proverbial needle in the haystack across 15 different haystacks, and thread it, and show exactly where the issues are occurring, and when they're occurring, and why they're occurring. Software observability becomes performance improvements, becomes consistent, drives consistency in application outcomes.
Absolutely. And not only that, like your system or each individual service might be
Yeah.
hitting its SLAs, but when you chain all of those together, you're not in total. So it's like, do I have a problem? Like, well, your end users do, but it becomes so complex that you need something to understand the system across the board. You can't just monitor each individual thing and say, hey, my SLAs are great, because in total, they might not be.
Right. Yeah. You can't have the SQL guys raising their hand, going, "Hey, the servers look good. All good here. We're 5 nines over here. All's well."
No, yeah, in my background, like I used to be that person, right? I'd get a bunch of smart people in a room, we'd point fingers, and people just try to excuse yourself from the problem or blame the network. While I own the application, I'm like, it's this isn't happening, right? We all fundamentally own this, right?
Yeah.
How can we assist the business and the users to move forward?
That's right, because it ultimately is about user outcomes. All right, how does somebody get started with AppDynamics to make some changes and improvements in their systems?
Yeah, ultimately, we have free trial on our website, right? We can engage through multiple sources, but it really comes down to what are you looking to accomplish, right? What
Yeah,
applications are important to you, and what is your outcome, right? A lot of times we'll sit down and discuss what KPIs run the business, right? This isn't really just about monitoring, a server, right? What actually drives revenue for you, and
yeah,
then being able to tie the technical metrics to the business value is where the true conversations happen, right? When you go to a business leader and say, hey, CPU's at 95%, right? Their eyes glaze over. They really don't care. But when
yeah.
you say, hey, revenue's impacted by 10% because of this, it's a much different story.
You can
So
wake people
that's
up pretty quick with that statement.
100%.
And you can also use that to justify improvements as well, where you can now model and come back and say, look, if we invest in this one tier, in this one aspect of our application, we can not only from a technical side have better performance, blah, 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 but ultimately drive a better user experience, which we believe is going to lead to an X% increase in potential sales, because we're having people leave us in this one piece of the channel.
That's how you fundamentally change the game, right? When you can really have those business metrics and walk in with those discussions, right? It not only elevates you in that conversation, but it also assists the business in being able to actually understand where money is driven and what the outcomes of that are, for sure.
Yeah. And so how fun is that for you well, let me ask this question. So when somebody first comes to you, you get brought into a sales opportunity. Do they understand truly the power that they have in the tool that you're there to represent, or do they think they're solving a smaller problem and realize that they're going to have this gargantuan impact eventually?
It's funny. I would say it's all over the map, but it really falls into a few buckets.
Okay.
Few actually realize the true vision and power in total.
Yeah.
Those visionaries are there, but a lot of times it's more of, hey, I have a pain, right?
Yeah.
I just had an outage, right? My CIO is yelling at me for this, that, and the other. I need to solve that. And
Yeah.
then when, not only very simple, like very first day, whatever, after we install and we say, hey, these 5 things, if you go resolve those, you will have a significant performance benefit,
Yeah.
but also look at the KPIs that drive the business and then tie them together. It really elevates that conversation, opens a lot of eyes, and most of the time it's just one of those times in a meeting. It's just an aha moment, which is beautiful to
Yeah.
see, right?
I love
At
it
least when we had
when the glazed eyes get a sparkle in them and they're like, aha, here we go.
yes. Yes,
Well, and what
it's
it
it's
does is it fundamentally allows is a catalyst to a change that's occurring right now between IT and the business. And IT has traditionally been that group that sits back in Building 102, who we try not to talk to very often because they're weird. And now we get to bring them into the business to be able to be a significant player in driving the entire business forward. So imagine when IT shows up and doesn't say, how many servers do you want, but now comes in and says, what's your most important KPI? Because I can actually attach to that in the application and help drive that.
And we've even had other teams, not IT, wanting to look at dashboards that are pertinent to their resources, right? So,
Mhm.
you can pull out any of those KPIs, create a dashboard for them. It doesn't have to be IT based, but is pertinent to how they run their business. So when those teams are coming to IT and asking for things like that, it's almost a game changer.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to put a link back up on the screen where people can go to sign up to get some more information. But you mentioned, as you talk about those first things that come up after you do the install, and I asked, what's it like to get started? I mean, am I installing software on servers? Am I dropping agents? Am I connecting to a cloud service? Take me through a little bit of the details.
Yeah, so there's so many technologies out there, right? So there's not really one size fits all. But in reality, we're either working through your automation pipelines, we're
Okay.
either adding a simple agent to something like a JVM, or installing on Windows Service, or adding some code into a serverless element to allow us to monitor those all back and forth. So all the way through single JVM on premises, through Kubernetes or serverless. There's ways to instrument all these, but it's generally very quick, right? If you understand the technology, you understand the application, it's generally sitting down for maybe an hour talking about where you need to instrument and what you need to do, and then going
Yeah.
and executing. And often, like, we have value easily within a day with less than an hour to work.
That is incredible. And how much do you have to sort of rein people in when they see that first? They okay, you're gonna enable my first workload. Okay, that's pretty amazing. Do it on everything. How should a company think about expanding or growing with AppDynamics?
Yeah. So often, we want to that is important to the business, right? What drives revenue or drives a lot of pain? So that's where we generally start. And like I mentioned, it usually starts because there was a problem. So once that first application is instrumented and the value is obtained very quickly, often it's a very quick expand to others, because they see the value, they understand, and often it's other groups or other application owners that are coming to them saying, "I want that data too."
Yeah. So let's go back to the title of this: answering questions you didn't know you had. And this was as I was watching the demo, and your coworker Mark was walking us through some stuff, and as I was looking at some of the slides and then watching the actual live demo of it, you really, you mentioned you get brought in because there was a problem. Solve this one thing. Though the thing broke, and now I need to know when that thing is going to break again, so that we don't break, and we just want to not break. That's our one problem: not break. But you actually get all of this power, these business metrics that you can now start to influence, where you can ask questions of the application that you didn't know that you could do before, and that's incredibly powerful. So when we think about implementing all of this, it's you guys are software providers. You've got this as a service. It can run in on some servers as well. But that's a place where Rackspace comes in to really help companies implement and then manage this over time. Because tell me about how companies actually go through that implementation process. Because I want you to tease out something you said before. You can create dashboards for business departments that aren't necessarily driven directly by or for IT. And that's one of those areas where folks like Rackspace can really be a great value. Benefit here is in the creation of not just how do we go monitor more things, but how do we get greater insights out of what we're monitoring now. So tell me about how partners play into this.
No, that's very important, right? Any tool, like, I've even bought software myself that it was like I wasn't entirely trained up on how to use, and I
Right.
probably didn't get as much benefit out of it as possible. So being able to instrument is one thing, but also then baselining what do you need to alert on, what do you need to correlate, what KPIs are important, right? Walking through the conversations to understand what dashboards I need to build
Yeah.
is very important to value. So having partners that have the capacity, understand how to do that and do that day to day is very adds a significant amount of value to quick execution, quick time to value, as well as ultimately being able to showcase what's been done to other people in an organization, right? To your own horn in that sense. But partners add significant value because they're very, very familiar with how to do this.
Well, and that's exactly what Rackspace does in this context, and what we're excited to get to help you guys with on. And we have so many customers that we're helping for you guys, and it's the joy of watching those aha moments of those first few dashboards you put in place, where you create those solutions, and they start to say, well, if you can tell me this, can you tell me that? And of course, the answer is generally always yes, and then the power of it just really starts to spread. And that's we made the also we started this session with talking about how every problem is a data problem ultimately, and when data gets really useful is when you can visualize and get some analytics out of it that you couldn't get before, and that's what your tool does so very well. So let me ask you this question. We hadn't planned for this one, but when you get in and you instrument for the technical side, the IT side, what are some examples of how the business is getting value out of it that they didn't before, or maybe some types of dashboards and insights that they would get that they couldn't before?
Yeah. So like on the business KPI side, is that what you're
Yes.
interested in?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you instrument, you get all the IT stuff, right? Throughput,
Right.
response time, error rates, etc. But you can go and pull out any element that's actually being processed through the system. So think of an e-commerce application, right? When you
Yeah.
click checkout, that's performance, but there's so much more to it. Who is the user? What was the dollar value? How many items were in the cart? What was it? A platinum user, a basic user? These are the types of things that can be pulled out and then dashboarded, and even segmented, right? What's the performance of my highest value users? Maybe
Yeah.
what's the performance of my executive team versus everyone else? These are the types of things that can start to be pulled out and even leveraged to proactively reach out to users that maybe are impacted. So,
Yeah.
the business value is effectively any element in the system that you care about, which is why it's important to sit down and understand what the KPIs are. But those are the dashboards that can be created and then correlated to IT performance as well.
Do you ever see where they're using the tool across multiple systems that maybe influence one another? My thought here is, what about a digital marketing system that is automatically feeding advertising out into the world, and then also tracking in real time? Are we seeing an impact on the servers? What marketing is working in real time and being able to tune business performance that way?
Sort of. So, one of our largest clients actually was leveraging it for people that were, buying plane tickets that had
Okay.
errors to immediately reach out to them. It's like, hey, let's, have a feedback loop here.
Yeah.
But the correlation of that data set, is absolutely possible, and that's really where you get into, the whole kind of next realm of possibilities, and also something that's arguably is very important for a partner because they've done this stuff as well.
That's right, and we can lead them down the road of, here. Okay, you bought this great tool. It's not just for the one thing you thought it was for. It's actually for so much more. Well, folks, the address of how to get learn more information and sign up is here on the screen. So I'd love for you to go check that out and get into the world of software observability with AppDynamics if you're not already. And Rackspace is here to help you be that company who will help implement all of that as well. Troy, thank you so much for being on Rackspace Live today. It was really a
Thank
great
you.
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Hope you have an amazing day. And until next time, I'm Jeff DeVerter for Rackspace Live, and we'll see you next time around.